Hey guys, thanks for joining me on my channel. I got something really special today, but before we get to that, I just wanted to remind y'all of the competition going on with True EDM. It is a donation-based competition. It's only $15 donation can enter you in a competition to win a free room and a free flight to Denver for Living Water 2024. Isn't that a great deal? It's a wonderful
That's a
tool.
good deal. Who does that? Free
Oh.
room, free flight. Let's go. Come on.
Let's do it. Check it out in the description if you're interested. But let me introduce the amazing guy we have over here. Today we have Sammy Praise. Say hi, Sammy.
What's up, family? How we doing? So glad y'all are tuning in today.
I'm so glad to have you. Y'all have no idea how great this guy is. We were actually hanging out for Wilderness not too long ago, and we had way too much fun. Taco Star is now a thing. We'll fill you in on that some other day.
Taco Star is a true EDM tradition. Future Christian Raves sponsored by Taco Star.
Oh, that's a goal. Taco Star, if you're watching this, you have to sponsor it.
Taco Star definitely watching this. Taco Star, we know you're watching this. And hit us up.
Hit us up for sure. Well, we are here because Sammy has a really amazing story that he's going to be sharing with us today. He's similar to me in our history with rave culture and everything. But let's go back to the very beginning. Let's start with like your roots. Sammy, what kind of family did you grow up in?
Wow. We're taking it back to the old school, back to the roots. See, the thing about me is like, some kids grow up in the hood. Some kids grow up in a rich neighborhood. Some kids grow up in foster care. Some kids grow up really privileged. Some kids grow up on the street, and some kids grow up in different types of programs. For me, I grew up in all of those, but I started in a traveling hotel society. So I was born into a traveling hotel society, which was constantly moving and on the road. And because of that, my family dynamic was extraordinary. It was different than you could imagine for most people, living in a place where there's people coming in and out, traveling the states, going back and forth. And my family, constantly changing, one person coming, one person going, everyone always traveling. It was very all over the place, very sporadic, but nonetheless, my mother was like just always pressing into me something about a call of God on my life. And yet I didn't really know what that meant as a child, watching the world around me, watching people use things they shouldn't be using, watching people use people how they shouldn't be using. But nonetheless, in the midst of all of that, I remember growing up on Veggie Tales. My family always bought me all the Veggie Tale movies. I watched Bob Tomato and Larry the Cucumber and like Larry Boy, and that was my childhood. Yeah, like in the midst of chaos all around, I'm just like locked in on Madam Blueberry, singing some songs, silly songs with Larry, and listening to Bible stories. And that kind of like shaped my worldview. So my mom was there, my pa was my father figure. And with that, we went through a lot of different transitioning points. So as a young child, I had a lot of different friends because my friends were always families that were coming in, coming out. And my friends became my family as my family more, focused on life. So going into that, we had some rough spots, when I was a teenager, and I went, in and out of the home and kind of went in and out of foster care with different families, and ended up living with my friends and my friends' families at different points in time. So when it comes to family, honestly, the way that my life has shifted and shaped me is to gain family wherever I'm placed. And because of that, now I have an extensive amount of people that I would consider family that are near and dear to my heart, because we grew through times of struggle and times of learning to understand. So when you say family, it's such a big spectrum to me, because I can't just look at like normal dynamic, but I see like family as those people that are there for you, whether you're up, whether you're down, whether you're bad or good, whether you need to get your crap together, or you have everything together. And that's really the type of way that I have been shaped for family all my life.
Yeah, I guess some people have a hard time when they come to the Lord, like
Oh,
letting go of their blood roots, because I've seen people come to the Lord and their family isn't walking in that light, and it's hard for them to accept other people as
mhm.
family. And so it's kind of cool seeing your perspective in that, because I've learned that a lot too. In my current adult life, I have my adopted family who you've met, Donna and Jeff,
Yeah, they're amazing.
and they've taken in me as if I were their own, and it's been very healing to have more people other than my blood family in my life. But I do want to go back a little bit to like your father and your dynamic there, because something I've studied a lot in just like understanding how we view God and our Father in heaven, a lot of the
Yeah,
time it correlates to our God, our Father here on earth. Do you think maybe that had an effect on your relationship with God, like what you understood God to be based on your relationship with like your dad?
1,000%. Thousand, 1,000,000,000,000,000%. So growing up, I had my pa. So my pa was my mother's husband, who she had been married to for a very long time. They separated for some time. She had me and then came back to him. So he was never my blood father, but he was all, and he was much older. I mean, he was what he's the same age as my grandfather. So he, in a sense, was there as a father figure for me, but he treated me like a grandfather would treat a grandson, like just gifts, 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 lollipop, 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 like what treat you just as, the baby child in a sense, because all of his children had already grown up that were his blood children. So I was, his chance just to like treat a kid in every way possible. So I didn't really get the grow up like different types of direction father figure in my life at an early age. I only got that, which that is amazing. I'm so grateful for every moment of that. But
Mhm.
it didn't teach me what an actual father was.
Mhm.
So going into, I ended up meeting my real dad, my earthly father, here when I was about 15 years old. And it was a very bumpy road with him and his family for about 10 years. From 15 to 25, we would see each other and then not see each other, see each other, not see. It was very rocky. And it wasn't because like he was like out running around or this or that. It was just like we didn't mix well.
Mhm.
My lifestyle that I had grown up in, which was a lot more rough than the family that he had created, didn't blend very well. And that was on both sides. That's on my side, on their side, through and through. So it was a hard combination. Nonetheless, the Lord used very strategic moments to align things for us to reunite multiple times, and me and my sisters to reunite between the age of 15 and 25. There was multiple God moments where we would run into each other in public, in some crazy person, in a city of millions of people around. Somehow we would end up crossing paths, and like these are the things that only the Lord could really, really do. So
Mhm.
because of that, by the time I turned 25, we started pressing in on that relationship more. And but at this time I was already an adult. I already have my own house. I already have my own car. I already have my own things. I'm living up by myself. I'm self-sufficient. I have my own career and my own worldview and all of that. So there was no more time to shape and shift as like a father figure. Nonetheless, now, especially since I gave my life to Christ over the past 5 years, I've cultivated this relationship with my dad. I go to his house, I'll serve him, I'll go spend extended points in times with him, and I'll show him the heart of Jesus. And because of that, we've, created a very intriguing and intimate friendship.
Mhm.
And he doesn't. Since we missed that part of my life where like he's the authority figure, he's more of a friend with some guidance and wisdom, of course, because he's in his 70s, so he's lived a lot more life than I have.
Right.
But nonetheless, he's like he's there to just say like, hey, I'm here and I'm here for you for anything you need. And I don't even understand your life, but I love you and I support you. So because of that, I now the Lord has used these past couple of years to like show me what a father is. I spent some time asking God, like, God, show me your father heart because I don't even understand this yet. Like, I don't even get this yet. And the Lord used this time with my dad, like over these past years, to expose what the father's heart is to me. And honestly, I don't think that, it was outside of its timing. I think the Lord used the timing perfectly to the advantage of the Holy Spirit to work through both of our lives. And now I actually have a mind shift and a shaping of understanding the Father's heart, which is an amazing thing to know about God. I'm sure you can agree.
Yeah, that's amazing. I definitely understand what you mean when you have a healthy like father kid daughter son relationship with your dad. It helps you understand God a little better, kind of like that discipline and wisdom and just the kind of love for sure. So let's go back a little bit. How in this like I've never heard of hotel traveling lifestyle before. I've seen it. I've seen it. I have friends who traveled from hotel to couch to hotel to room to and it's I've done it a little bit my own where I'm going from room to apartment to room to another
Yeah.
apartment. So but like as a kid, like how does that work with like school or church and stuff like that? Because
Well,
yeah.
so yeah, take that down for you. Now, the thing about me is I wasn't so much on the travel side as I was like kind of in a stable place. There was this place called Greg Drive that I grew up on, and Greg Drive is right off of the Turnpike exit in a suburb of Eastern Pittsburgh. Okay. And what was placed there was known as the Carlton Motel, which the Carlton Motel was the hot spot in town. It had a giant bar and a giant pool out back. So like everybody went there to party and all the families in town took like their families there to go to the pool all summer long. So this place was like it was thriving, it was full of life, but it was also like too big. It wasn't classy at all. I'm going to tell you that right now. But everybody went there. So because of that, I was born into that place. My mom and my pa lived there when I was born, and growing up, we ended up buying a house right across the street. So we stayed part of the community. And as we stayed part of the community, I mean, the community changed every couple months, every year, by the day, sometimes by the year, sometimes families would stay a couple years.
Yeah.
But that's how like I gained my friends. My friends would be there one day, they'd be gone the next. They'd be there for 3 years. Yeah, like it would be back and forth. But I experienced this very interesting culture on a one block place where travelers just come in and out and things are like there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of action. The cops are always there because like something crazy's happening, and people were always partying or having fun or just grilling out and having a good time. Like everybody on the block knows each other, so it was a different type of community than you would see, I would say, than most places on the earth. And because of that, it shaped a very interesting, world focus for me.
Okay. And you said that your mom would talk about God to you, and I'm assuming she
So,
would be the one who played Veggie Tales.
well, that's the thing. My sister Brenda, who is my pa's daughter, who is my mom's age,
Okay.
she, yeah, tricky things. She, quick maths. She bought me a bunch of VeggieTale tapes as a kid. Now, as a
Okay.
kid, my mom, she never really like, I wouldn't say reflected, the character and nature of God. I mean, in a loving way, yes, but as far as her character traits, and her decisions, they didn't reflect that. But she always told me, like, even in the midst of her addiction and problems and this and that, she would always, you're going to be a mighty man of God. She's like, the Holy Spirit spoke to me. And the Holy Spirit said that when you're born, you're not going to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth, but you're going to be spoon fed with the Holy Spirit. So here, like, get that. And she would like take me to Sunday school and like take me to church, and she wouldn't even stay half the time, but she would just like get me there. She just like get me in the presence of the Lord, because she knew that that would literally impact me for the rest of my life, even though, everybody has to find their own way. She made sure that she just pressed that in because without a reasonable doubt, she believed that Jesus, is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But, people have different types of pathways in life and they get caught up in different things. So
Yeah.
the world might not have looked like that around me, but she made sure she ushered me into the presence as much as possible.
I mean, God can use anyone who's willing. I've definitely noticed that before. Like, there's been people who I've ran into who are on the streets who are drug addicts, but they
Mm.
love Jesus. And
Yeah,
I've seen that highly impact people. In fact, I
yeah.
have a very close friend who's sober now, who had a homeless friend who loved Jesus and was one of the many people who was witnessing to her. And now she's sober and getting her life together. And it's just crazy. God can use anyone who's willing. And so that's so good. And mom is always just has a natural, like moms just have this natural desire to nurture. And
Mm.
you can never take that away. I don't think so. That's really great and really sweet of you to share that. I do want to talk a little bit about like teenage years. So like when did you start getting into, did you start drinking or using at a young age, or were you just seeing it happen around you? It's hard when you're surrounded by that to like not want to see what was going on and what it was like.
See, as far back as I can remember, and that's honestly a really good question because you never know, like the way that it's introduced to people.
Right.
But my entire life, I can't, I don't remember like a time before drugs weren't a normal thing. My entire life growing up, like I saw people using, I saw people drinking, I saw people partying. It wasn't out of pocket or strange to do that. It was completely just the normal thing to do. So, with that being the social norm in the community that I was in, I would say at a very young age, probably around 12, 13, is when I started experimenting. I started smoking pot, started drinking, and that probably turned into by the age of 14 start testing out different things like pills or anything we could get our hands on. And so that's when early in my teenage years I migrated to the other kids that were doing that at school, and I migrated to the people that were doing that because we were all the kids that had it a little bit more rough, that didn't have a curfew at night, that didn't have rules to follow. So we ran together, and we did stupid stuff together, like, bad kids do. And we
Mhm.
weren't bad at heart. We were just like, we did what we did. And because
All
of
you
that,
knew. That's what you
yeah,
knew. Like
I
some
feel
people
like,
don't understand. Like if you're brought up in that, that's like all you know. It's just normal. Like I remember I heard in my addiction support group, this lady, she said that her dad died, and how she responded, he died of alcoholism. And what did she do at the funeral? She drank alcohol
uh,
because that's what she knew to do. And so
yeah,
I don't want anyone on here to like be thinking that anyone who's caught up in this lifestyle just like sometimes people just dabble into it, but most of the time when people are brought up in this kind of history, it's just normal. It's just part of their life, and it takes a lot to get out of it.
especially when it's like, it feels like it's part of your DNA. It feels like it's part of your family, part of your friends, part of culture. Like you see it on TV. This is like growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s. I'm watching MTV and I'm watching VH1 and I'm
Oh
watching
yeah.
BET
Of course you
and
are.
I'm seeing it in real life. What's strange about this? You don't think. And of course, you might end up church here or there, but even at that point in time, like I felt like the churches I was in really weren't talking against the culture. They were more just like bringing you into church, like welcome to church. But they weren't like, and I can't say this for all churches, just from my church experience, they weren't pressing against those types of things. So, or there wasn't as big of a battle, it seemed like. So, yeah, that turned into probably around 14. Yeah, the age of 14. That's when the opioid epidemic began to run rampant, especially through Western Pennsylvania. And that being in Pittsburgh, it was a hot spot for the drug trade overall. So I remember we were 14 years old. some of us 13, 12. That's when like a large sweep of heroin came through, and we all had access to it. We could, you could get heroin in middle school where I was from, and we lived in a suburb of Pittsburgh, so we lived in a very like the neighborhood and the school district was a very rich school district. Not all of the neighborhoods were nice. You know, you had very poor neighborhoods, very nice neighborhoods, but the school district overall was extremely wealthy. So that made it a just a melting pot of drug dealers, really, because there was a lot of money to be spent and a lot of people wanting to use. So I remember we all started, you know, dabbling with anything we could get our hands on, and that's turned into hard drugs. At which point, that's where I got in some trouble actually as a teenager, and they shipped me off to boot camp. They were like, "You got to go." So I got sent to boot camp. Had spent like a year in boot camp, just like having to run 5 miles a day and train. And now when I look back at it, it was kind of cool because they took us on expedition trips. We like hiked 14. That's when I hiked Pikes Peak. Like it was part of the expedition that like we had to go on to fulfill the curriculum.
I
And
live in Colorado. I haven't even visited Pikes Peak yet.
okay, I've hiked to the top, like multiple 14,000-foot mountains. Like you had to like accomplish all these things to get out of boot camp. And that was like one of them. So they sent me off. I came back. And when I came back from boot camp at the age of 15, all of my friends were shooting heroin. I mean, it was the opioid epidemic had overran everything. Us from partying 12, 13, 14, everyone was now, I don't want to say everyone, 8 to 9 out of 10 people that were my friends were then full-time heroin addicts. So I came back into that and I'm like, okay, this is like what we're doing. This is this is how we're living. I'm like, okay, you know, like I get down, let's do our thing. So I started dabbling into that life and quickly, you know, getting an opiate addiction. But that had only happened for a couple weeks after me being home. And one strange night, through meeting a new friend who I found really, really interesting and intriguing, he invited me, and he was so quick rundown. So because I went to boot camp, I got expelled from normal school. Because I got expelled from normal school, I had to go to a secondary school. At the secondary school, I met this kid with dreads that was like kind of hippie-ish. And he was cool. So he invited me to his house, and his house was like a multi-million-dollar house. So his family started welcoming me over and like feeding me and taking care of me and all this stuff because they seen I didn't have like the best home life. And that's when he was like, "Hey, dude, I'm gonna go to this thing called a rave." And I was like, okay. So his mom packed us up in their expedition, like a high class SUV, and went and dropped us off at the rave. And I went into the rave and I met all of these people that were so happy and so excited, and it was so loving. And it wasn't like what I was used to because I had just gone home and everyone was stealing from each other, using heroin, all like real street stuff. And this place was like full of love, full of kindness, full of happiness. The music's dope. I never heard nothing like this. And like it was all good. It was like I had found myself in a wonderland. There was like 1,000 some people in a warehouse, just all having a great time, and they all loved me. And I also, was like, okay, let's party. So ended up being there all night long until the break of dawn and had like the best time of my life. And that was the morning where I was like, okay, I'm not doing that I'm not going back to all my friends that I grew up with that are doing that, but I'm going to do this. And that's where my path split. And I became a raver at a very young age. And I immediately just like pressed in on that. I was like, this is everything to me. Every weekend we lived for the rave. And I wasn't even technically allowed at a lot of the raves, but like I quickly made friends. I somehow would like end up in agreements that they would like sneak me in and all this stuff. Because I
Oh,
was
if you know people, you're fine.
cool. I was like 16 and I was just like, boom, in there. And I just started raving nonstop. And I felt like I was doing the healthy thing. I seen the two paths in front of me. And of
Right.
course there was more paths, but there was two that I see. And
Right.
it was either go with these friends or go with these new friends. And I chose the Raven. I chose the Ravers, and I chose because I knew that like this was partying and that was addiction. You know what I'm saying? I knew that this was like fun and that was death, if you will.
Well, and I had a similar experience with like the rap scene because I would go to
Oh,
jambalaya with my friend in high school and we'd party with a lot of people who are within that scene already. And it is like a night and day difference. Like the I would say the mosh pits like at a rap concert are straight up bloody noses and throwing fists. But like if you go to a rave culture, like mosh pit, it's like, let's jump together. And it's like totally the hippie version of like what I was used to. So I get it. It's just so it's so you draw to it. It feels like a happy butterfly.
yeah. And like the thing is like both of them completely infiltrated with drugs. It was just I was choosing the path that I see that seemed more fulfilling, that seemed more fruitful, that seemed more full of life. And are the drugs good? No, but I feel like the Lord was at least using that choice of path to shape my life and the person that I was going to become, especially like for future causes. So
I
that's when
agree. I think
that's when I
like I'm
started.
gonna hold you there because I do think
Wait,
there are
wait,
some things we can learn from like the rave culture scene. And this is a huge like hopefully a grain of salt, but like hear me out. Like if we had more ravers come to the Lord and fill the church, man, how welcoming would it be?
oh my gosh.
How
Everybody
welcoming would it be? How amazing would the worship sessions be if we just had a room full of ravers worshiping the Lord? Like, it's just, there's something about that free flowing and outgoing energy that goes on within the rave scene that you don't see in many places. And honestly, but obviously the drugs and all the new age practices and all the deception seeps in. God's gonna, or the enemy's gonna take advantage of what he can if they'll let him. But I will say that there is just like some things about the rave scene that the church I feel like could learn from.
I completely agree with that statement. And well, who knows what the future has in store, but the Lord will use it. I believe the Lord will use it. So I'm excited.
So you're in the rave scene, best thing ever since sliced bread. Now I know you started throwing your own shows. So I kind of want to get into how that started and like what motivated you
Mhm.
to start hosting your own shows.
Well, I mean, honestly, we can pick up right where we were in the story. So now
Mhm.
I'm going to raves as a teenager. I'm in high school. And I'm watching these DJs on stage, and they're doing really, really cool stuff. And I'm like, that's dope. I was like, I'm gonna do that. So I started making friends with all the DJs. I started hanging out with them, intentionally spending time with them, going to places they would go, going to the after parties, just like getting into the DJ culture and just trying to learn. Any chance I had, I would put my hands on some turntables. Any chance I had, I would get my hands on some decks. And when I finally had some money, I bought some myself. So in the midst of all of that, you know, I never even thought about throwing a party, but I had like been pressing in on becoming a DJ, like sharpening my craft, getting better and better and better. And by the time I was 20, I was starting to get bookings. I was in competitions. We were battling each other. Who was going to be like the next hot DJ in town? All this, and I quickly like ranked up at the top. I was like just putting everybody under the table because I was literally spending day and night practicing nonstop, like counting, doing everything I could. And as I won this one competition, they came to me because I was also, I had an exceptional amount of extra funds because I wasn't living the best lifestyle. And a couple promoters came to me and they were like, "Hey, do you want to sponsor this show?" And I was like, "Do you want to put me on the lineup?" And they were like, "Okay, we can make this work." So I paid for them to throw the show. And because I
Mhm.
paid for them to throw the show, they gave me credit as one of the organizers. And when this happened, it ended up being and I paid attention to everything. I was very involved. I listened to everything. I watched the organization. I had them give me flyers. I would go around and promote and all of this stuff. And like I just put my heart into it. I was like, if I'm doing some of this and my money's in it. So like I'm doing everything I can to help this thing. Well, first show, 20 years old, we get 1,200 people. It's off the chain. I was like, this is crazy. Amazing, packed out nightclub, fully like, and after party. I rocked a super sick set that like went off the chain, all of this stuff. And the next day I got paid. And I mean, like, I made like thousands of dollars of profit in one night. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. I make all this money. I get to rock this huge, super huge crowd through the super dope party. Everybody loves me. Everything's awesome. I'm getting attention from everybody. I'm getting like free drinks at the bar. I'm getting free everybody wants to be my friend. Like, yes, like this is what I'm gonna do. You know, immediately there's so many incentives that I couldn't deny it. So I was like, let's go. Now the thing is after that, I ended up getting in, some trouble, and I had to like take a seat for a little bit because I just wanted to make sure that I got my life together. So as I began getting my life together, I knew that this is what I was going to do. So I kind of went into a hibernation point for about a year. And during that year, I started making blueprints for raves. I started coming up with nifty, cool ideas, artists that I was going to book, different types of venues that we were going to take, immersive experiences, stage designs. And, I'm like 21 years old, just coming up with all of these like creative ideas, pouring them out, and at the same time, every day in the basement, DJing, practicing, building sets, building double drops, triple drops, everything that I could, working on music. And I spent about a year in the dark just doing that. And when I finally came out of hibernation, which, like, I let the trouble breeze over and I kind of, got back on my feet. I had saved some money because I was working a day job at that time. And also, like, I saved up enough to like get things started. And a buddy invested enough to like start a party, and I booked a warehouse, threw a
Nice.
giant party. Then I booked another space, threw another party. Then other people wanted to throw a party with me. I threw another party. Next thing you know, I was throwing parties quarterly, and like they were bangers. We were getting 500 to 1,000 people at every single one of them, and I started consistently doing that. And I like came up with like my niche at that point in time was like really pushing bass music culture in a different type of way. Because like up until then, the only thing that had been it was really big on drum and bass, it's really big on hard style. Dubstep started coming in, but like I was like, no, we're gonna get the hot new dubstep and trap artists that are different than anybody else that are blowing up right now. And like that's why at that point in time, I was booking artists that are now like some of the biggest acts in the EDM scene, but they hadn't even got out of state bookings yet. Like I was finding them like deep undercover because I knew that they were emerging, and I would travel to other cities and like find myself in green rooms with everybody who was up and coming and just like making and building relationships and friendships and networking. I would go where the people were, where the industry was. So that went on for a couple years, and I would throw quarterly bangers, and it was like turning out really, really well. And that's when I had an opportunity. I got approached by a nightclub that I threw a party in. They say, hey, you just pack this thing out. We want you to come in and do this more. We'll give you the venue for free. We'll give you the space for free. You can do this all, whatever you want to do. It's yours. This is your home now. So that's when I started throwing parties there, and it ended up turning into every week we would throw a party every Friday. We would throw all of the after parties for the major events. We would throw massive shows monthly. So I was the rave manager at the nightclub. I had at least one day a week, sometimes more than that. And was just like nonstop going at it, everything I could, giving it my all. And that's when it built up into the opportunity to throw my first music festival. And I teamed up with promoters from all across the Northeast, and we got together and we booked like 50 of the biggest dubstep acts, and we threw the first festival. It was like a $500,000 and completely bombed. Like like
Oh,
there was like 1,000 people there. There was like as many
oh,
people there as I would throw at a normal one of my shows. Like I was
oh
like I could have just
no.
thrown a party and done this. So like,
Ah,
but nonetheless, it taught me the nitty gritty work of every
yeah.
single calculation that it takes to host, organize, book, and go through for a major music festival.
Yeah.
So
I know
all of
that
that was like a
feeling.
yeah, it was like a 5 year time span. No, it's like a 7 year time span from like being
Mhm.
20 to 27. And at that the festival was when I was like 25, 26. And then after that, I was just like, I'm not doing a festival for a while. And I just went back to throwing shows. The nightclub shut down. So I just went back to doing quarterly events and they were flowing well. And I did that literally all the way up into the pandemic.
Okay. Okay. And I know the pandemic is like a big part of your testimony. So let's just keep on rolling.
Oh, well, that right there is where Jesus sweeps me off my feet. I mean, this is
Hey.
the climactic point of the story. This is the pinnacle. This is what it has all been building up to. My entire life, everything, like my spiritual journey and like the the blur and the raves and everything that I had lived for and back to the Veggie Tales as a kid. Like this is where it all comes back together. So right right literally beginning of 2020 I had I would say hit a peak in my career, like as far as organizing shows, DJing shows. I was playing different shows all across the Northeast. I was constantly on tour, traveling, direct support for all the biggest dubstep artists, just like rocking out venues, having a great time, and partying my life away, which was extremely unhealthy for me. And that's when, at the same time, like the club had shut down. So I went back to school and I was in college, but I wasn't really feeling it. And I was like throwing these shows, I was playing shows, and I was like, I could have more than this. Like, I could definitely have more. So I began coming up with a plan to move to a bigger market. And right as I'm developing this plan, I had a big fallout, a large amount of drama with a bunch of my friends in the rave scene that I was in. And there was a lot of arguments and a lot of just like accusations and different things going around, which was unhealthy for everybody because I mean, we all
Yeah.
know how drama can get complete. I'm not going to say that I wasn't feeding the situation also. I was at that point in time, I had a very large amount of pride on my life. I thought I was the coolest thing on the planet. I thought I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. It was, I was also out of control, 1,000%. Did I have bad intentions? No. Was I like bad hearted? No. But at the same time, I was like full of, I just did not have the right character development to be able to handle the amount of pressure that I had on me and the amount of eyes that I had on me for that time. So the drama perpetuated, and I was coming up with a plan to go to a new market. So I was like, okay, this is the plan. I'm going to move out of the Northeast. I'm going to go to Florida. And I'm going to capitalize on the Tampa, Orlando, Miami market. It's much more massive. There's a lot more money there. There's a lot bigger raves there. There's a lot more shows there. My DJ career, my promoter career, I invested to start a car dealership and like got a dealership license to start that and everything as like a side, like as also another business I was working on. I was going in with my buddy on that and like a luxury auto detailing business. Came up with a whole plan, moved to Tampa, bigger shows, bigger party, capitalize. Like, let's do this thing. It's time for the next level of life. So
Mhm.
I get on a plane. I put all my stuff in storage. I get on a plane. I fly down there, get off the plane. I walk inside. I go to sleep. I wake up. I'm not in Florida for 14 hours to start my brand new life with my next level of like success and all these worldly things I was chasing after. And it was March 15th, 2020. And that was the
Hmm.
day that the entire world shut down.
Oh
Julia,
no.
I wasn't in Florida for 24 hours and the whole world shut down. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, we'll go to the auction, buy some cars next week. I'll start finding a venue to host a show at next week. Like, I already started reaching out to promoters, like to get book gigs and things like that. I was like, we'll figure this out. And a week
Hmm.
went by, and 2 weeks went by, 4 weeks went by. So like
Oh.
I'm in Florida for 4 months waiting to start my new life, and it's still in the middle of a pandemic. Like I'm like, this is crazy. All of this is crazy. And mind you, like by this time, I'm pretty dry on funds because like I'm not making anything. I'm living in Florida, like trying to start a new life, and we like sunk like $30,000 into rent for like this dealership and everything's drying up. And I'm like, this is crazy. But so listen, in the midst of this, this is when since I moved there and I got out of my toxic environment, now I had quit partying. I had quit, using everything. I mean, I'm talking cold turkey, everything was out of my body. And I'm working out every single day. I'm like working on my body, working on my mind, reading, all of the things. And I'm like, I should start working on my spirit. So I'm like, okay, what makes sense? I start reading the Torah because
Okay.
Judaism makes sense. Like any scholar, like a worldly religion scholar, will tell you that if any religion makes sense, it's Judaism. So I'm like, okay,
Mm.
so I'm gonna read the Torah. So I start reading the Torah, and one day I'm like stretching and working on my body, and I find myself on my knees. While I'm on my knees, I just get this thought, pray, and I'm like, eh, okay. So I'm like, hey God, sup? How you doing?
So
I'm
I
like,
still talk to
I'm like,
God that
I'm
way.
yeah, me too, me too. Like, you gotta keep it real, like, and I'm like, I know it's been a while, dude, but like I'm just checking in, I'm just seeing what's up. I know you're the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I know you're the great God of Israel. I know you know me. I know this. Like, I'm just seeing what's good, dude. Like, and I actually do have a question. And I'm
One
like,
second.
God,
1 second.
yes,
Aspen's here now.
my guy.
You want to hear his testimony?
Yes.
Aspen joined us.
Yeah, I just got back and Julia has my keys to my apartment. So.
I want to
Okay, bet.
see. All right. Anyways, okay. You were praying to God. You said sup.
So I'm like, God, I got one question. Is Jesus legitimate? Because
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Like I heard about him all my life. I've been to church. Like I believe in Jesus. I do, I guess, but like I don't know. So like can you help me? No. And I just felt the still small voice of God be like, keep coming back. So every day I start a routine while I'm stretching before my run. I'm like, I start praying. I set a timer for 5 minutes. I'm praying for 5 minutes. That turns into 10 minutes. And that turns into 15 minutes. And mind you, I still don't have an answer, but like I'm checking in with God every day. I'm like, I gotta get all of this right. I gotta get my mind right, gotta get my spirit right, gotta get my body right. This is the time to change. Like I'm gonna be 30 in a couple years. Like I need to get my life together. That's like my mindset. So the spiritual walk was part of that. And well, that's when finally, like it was it's my 28th birthday. That's when I was supposed to. I had tickets to fly out of Florida to Denver for Wobble Rocks on my birthday, and well, that's canceled. So I'm like, what do? What do I do? So I like switch things up, and eventually I'm just like, I got to go back up north. Like I can't sustain living in Florida anymore. I have no budget to spend anymore. Like this is insane. I spent everything being down here. and nothing's happening, nothing's moving. It's just not, it's not realistic anymore. So I start heading back up north, and on my journey back to Pittsburgh, I find myself in Raleigh, North Carolina. And as I find myself in Raleigh, North Carolina, I'm with a friend, and we're working on my car, and like all this strange stuff happened this Monday. Like my car like broke down for no reason, and then I like went to get the parts from the store, and I had an Uber there, but then the Uber didn't show up, and I had to walk part of the way, and like then I got to the auto parts store, and they only had one part. I had to go to another auto parts store to get the other part, and like it's like all this ridiculous stuff. And then I get back, I fix my car, and I go to pressure wash it and detail it, and the brand new pressure washer I just bought from Home Depot isn't working. So like
Oh my gosh, one of those
more weird
days.
stuff. Like it's like boom, 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 boom.
Everything,
And there
yeah.
was more than that. I can't even remember everything right now. So then me and my buddy get in his truck. We go to Harbor Freight. We're waiting in line. It's a pandemic. Everyone has to stand 6 feet apart. There's a line around all the way around all the aisles. And like
Thank
he's
goodness.
like, this is ridiculous. We're just leaving. So we just like left. We get in his truck and he's like, you want to go to Long John Silver's? I'm like, I want to go to Long John.
Yes.
So so we type in Long John Silver's and it's all the way across town in this weird place for some reason. We're like, heck it, this is what we want. Just give us what we want right
We need our long johns.
now. I'm trying to get them hush puppies, fam. Like, come on, you know what I mean? So we go and we're driving across town and we get off this weird exit that we normally would never get off. It's known as the Nightdale exit. And I know that because I can never forget this moment of my life. And as we get off the exit, we're coming around the bend. As we're coming around the bend, I gaze out and I'm looking and I begin to see this Dodge Challenger flying through the air. And I'm like, is that gonna? And before I could say hit us, that Dodge Challenger had flipped up over the median on the other side, going 120 miles an hour, began cartwheeling, smashed two cars, flew up into the air. And I'm talking slow motion. I'm watching this thing barrel. And
Oh
I'm
my
like, is
God.
that gonna lands on top of us? Literally on top of us. So, and flies off, starts cartwheeling. And mind you, like 10,000 pounds punching you in the face doesn't feel good. I
No.
promise you that. So the F-150, pretty big truck that we're in, completely smashed all the way up to our noses. Okay, up to right here, smashed, crunched, metal, like pure steel, crunched, destroyed, up literally up to our faces. But like everything's in a daze, you know. It's like what just happened? I'm like, Chris, are you alive? My buddy, he's alive. I crawl out, I fall out of the truck. I look around. It's like a scene out of like a post-apocalyptic situation. As far as you can see, there's cars flipped, there's smoke in the air, there's glass, and there's blood on the road, and there's people screaming, and it's just like everything's kind of wonky, and my head's like, shh. And I'm like, what's happening? I look out into this field, and this Dodge Challenger that was barreling through the air is like a half a football field out. And I'm
Mhm.
like, and it's on fire, it's smoking, and it's flipped upside down. And I'm like, I have to get this guy. So I start running through the field, but I'm like hobbling because I'm actually pretty jacked up, but my
Yeah.
adrenaline
I can't imagine you
blasting
being very
through my
great.
body. And I get to the car and I look in it, and nobody's in the car. And I'm like, what? And I look in it again, and they're like, get away from the car. It's gonna blow. And and then I hear somebody like, he's over there. So another half a football field out, the guy had catapulted out of the car. So now I'm running across this field and I'm running along, and forgive me for the graphicness, but I'm running along a long trail of blood that this guy had skidded and slid for like 30, 50 feet across this field. And I get to him and he's bloody as a pulp. He's destroyed, like mangled, but he's barely breathing. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I possibly do right now? And everybody's like, don't touch him, don't touch him. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, wait a second, pray. So I lightly lay my hands on and I begin to pray. And I'm like, Lord, like Jesus, if you're real, if you're real, now's the time. Like if there was ever a time, now is the time, dude. Seriously, like please let this man live. So the helicopter gets there, they life flight him out, they put me in an ambulance, put my buddy in an ambulance, put these other people in ambulances, ship us off to the hospital. And well, the dude that got life flighted that was in the Challenger, he died that night. And another lady that was in critical condition, she died that night. Another person was in critical condition still, and some other people were injured. And I was pretty banged up. My buddy was pretty banged up. Nonetheless, we both walked out of the hospital in the middle of the night that night, probably like around midnight, sometime between midnight and 3 a.m. On 2 feet. And like definitely suffering some injuries, but like alive nonetheless, and walking, alive and walking, and just like in the midst of death. So we go back to his house. This is Friday, July 25th, 2020. We go back to his house all day Saturday. We're just stuck in a daze, trying to numb the pain just by like getting stoned and like sitting there and trying to process what just happened, but like not even really thought. And it turns the next day. And like, I'm like, oh yeah, wait a second. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I just lost my entire career. I just lost my entire business. I lost my business prospects. I lost my potential future businesses. Every iron I had in the fire was thrown into the trash. My journey to Florida was completely trashed. Everything for my new life, all my old friends are gone because of the drama that we experienced. Everything that I knew that was ripped away from me. And I was like, oh yeah, I have to go back to Pittsburgh. I'm like, I completely forgot at this point. And I'm like, okay. So I get in my car and I go to the store. I'm going to get one more thing from AutoZone before I head back. And I'm thinking about all. I'm thinking about how I've not, within less than 6 months, I've lost everything. I've lost everything I ever had. The status I had, the friends I had, the reputation I had, the businesses, the career, the future plans, everything was destroyed. And I almost just died and watched a bunch of people die. And it's like, I'm thinking about all this and I'm like, what is going on? Why? Why is this happening? And that's where, right in that moment, I hear a voice as clear as day. I mean, as clear as day, as clear as I can hear your voice, Julia, clearer than I can hear it coming through. As clear as can be, say, go to church. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, church isn't really my thing. Like, I still hadn't came back. I still like not like put my faith in Jesus yet, but like, I'm like, I don't know. And I look down at my clock in my car and it says 10:30 a.m. And I'm like, wait a second, dude. I pick up my phone and it's Sunday. I'm like, it's 10:30 a.m. on a Sunday. And I just heard a voice. My life is in shambles. And I just heard a voice as clear as day say, go to church. And there ain't nobody else in this car right now. And I'm like, if that's what you want, I'll do it. So I like pull into the first church I see right there, right off the road. And I go inside. And there's a 117-year-old pastor giving a sermon on how Paul made his conversion from Judaism to Christianity. It's a Southern white Baptist church. Farmer Jim with the straps and the long beard is there.
Classic. I love it.
I'm like, is this what you wanted, God? I'm like, I know this stuff. I'm like, is this what you wanted? And I hear that still small voice again. Go to the next church. So I get up and I get in my car and I drive like a mile down the street and I pull into the next church. Go inside. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm like, when I walk in, I find myself one slightly Caucasian guy walking into 1,200 black folk, and they are partying for the Lord. I mean, they're hallelujah, they're praising, they're doing cartwheels. They're like, come on, honey, get on in here. They're wearing pink hats and green suits, and they got canes, and like they're shining. And I'm like, this is crazy. And I just start getting it. I'm like, come on, let's go. And right there, the Holy Spirit speaks to me, and he's like, listen, every moment of your life has built up to this point. Now is the time. Your life has been mine this entire time. I have shaped you for what I've called you to, and you are mine. And what I didn't even know is my name means Samuel, which means property of the Lord. Like that's the definition of my name. But like he's like, you are mine, and your life
That's like
isn't yours.
Hannah presenting her son and giving her. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
like I was the Lord's the whole time. Like, but he had built me up to this moment. And he's like, if your life was yours, you would be dead, but your life is mine. So you are alive. And I was like, oh, I get it. I just had that all. I'm like, this, I get it. I'm like, if my life was mine, I'd have been dead a long time ago. I would have been dead when I was a teenager. But my life is yours, and because my life is yours, you have been watching over me, and it's all built up to this point. And since you have saved me, every moment of my life, everywhere I go, everything I do, everywhere I am, everyone I'm with, it's all for you. Because I don't want anything of my own. I only want you. And immediately I'm talking like spirit just falls on me. I fall on the ground and like on my knee, not like but like on my knees and like
You weren't slain in
give
the
my
spirit.
get completely
I don't think
surrender.
we do that
No,
here.
like I hit my knees, and like began to pray, and I surrendered my life to Jesus that day. And well, since then it has been the craziest journey.
Oh, I
and
bet.
and better than I could have ever imagined life to be, because like the Lord will position you and he'll use it, whatever it is, he'll use it for his good. And when he has you marked there, he will bring you home. That's for sure.
That is so true. It's funny because you're still traveling. You're still doing the traveling now because you're all over the place. But you do that for YWAM, and I do want you to hint on the story about that because that's a fun story.
Well, yeah. So I'm freshly saved. I'm saved 1 week. Okay, so now I
Wow.
I go from there and I get back to Pittsburgh and I'm like, Mom, I'm saved. And she had gone like she came back to the Lord a couple years prior to that. She had already cleaned up
Uh-huh.
her life. She has her
Oh.
life together. My mom is great. She loved the Lord the whole time through the tough times, but like she
Yeah.
had been walking with the Lord. She's like, I've been praying for this day. She's like, I knew that the Lord would bring you home. She's like, I've been pressing in. I've been in the spirit on my knees praying. She's like, I'm like, Mom, I get it. I get it. She's like, yes. So she's like, you're coming to church with me. So I
Prayers
go to
of
church with
moms.
her. The prayers of moms. I go to church with her and I'm sitting in church. And as I'm sitting in church, this pretty girl walks by. And I'm like, oh, pretty girl. And I'm like, okay, wait. We're in church. Like, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, control yourself, Sam. And the pretty girl walks by again. And I'm like, oh, there she is again. I'm like, stop it. Don't do that. Don't do that. And she walked by again. And I'm like, God, can I talk to her? And I felt God be like, go ahead. Go ahead. So after church, like I approach her and I'm like, hey, like my name's Samuel, pleased to meet you. I'm like, I really felt it on my heart to come and pray with you. So we like start praying, start chatting. Next thing you know, we're going on a date. So we go on this date and we go on a couple dates. She invites me to this small Christian get together. Okay, so I go to this small Christian get together on a Tuesday night, because I'm like, this is what Christians do. They like hang out with each other, you know what I mean? Like this is what I'm supposed to do, right? So I'm like, okay, and I go and I'm hanging out there, and there's only like four people there, and the family that's there, mother, father, kid, the kid's awesome. They're telling me about how they do missions and how they do music and how they travel the country, for the Lord, using their creativity and dance, drama, music, theater, productions, all of the stuff. And I'm like, I'm like, what? I'm like, I love all of this. This is like me, you know? I'm like, you do this for the Lord. I'm like, I can do this for I didn't even know this was a thing. And travel, like, and I had been planning, mind you, building up to this whole moment before I got saved. I was constructing a plan to go to travel to every state and just get in my car with my little dog and go to every state park and like just do this expedition trip across America. But like the Lord completely sideswiped me. So I was like, wait, you can like go across the country, you like go on tour and all this. They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what is it? They're like, why wham? I'm like, why who? They're like, why wham? I'm like, why, huh? They're like, why wham? I'm like, why, what? They're like, we're gonna send you the information. I was like, okay. So they send me the information, I read it. I'm like, I don't even really read it. I'm just like, sign me up. I sign up. And at this point in time, I think I have like $200. And it's like $10,000 to go to the school. But I'm like, I pray and I feel the Lord saying, do this. So I'm like, sign me up. And they hit me up and they're like, your application has been received and you are accepted. Like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I guess let's do it. They're like, trust in the Lord for the funds, like he'll bring it through. So mind you, I'm like less than 2 months saved. I'm already signed up to go into missions. And within about 5 months after getting saved, I find myself on a plane on my way to Boston to YWAM, fully paid for, fully funded, the Lord providing every step of the way. I get off the plane, I go inside, and I'm like, so this is the YWAM. And they're like, this is a YWAM. I'm like, this isn't the YWAM. And they're like, we're like a global organization. And I'm like, for real? They're like, you have no clue what you're doing, do you? I'm like, nope. And that's the day Music Mission started. And I got to go to 60 cities in 90 days, every major city in the US, and preach the gospel and do worship in every city and travel. And it introduced me to Music Missions and literally created, like, that's where my character development started. Like, it shaped and shifted who I've become today because of the extensive amount of discipleship that YWAM provides. You know, that's like our foundation is to know God and make him known, like to know, to press in on God every day, all day, and share that with others, both other Christians in discipleship and the lost. And that's why I love the culture so much. And now it, has opened the door for me to do ministry, not only all across the nation, but after living water this summer, I'm flying right back. And within 12 hours, I'm flying to Paris to preach the gospel at the Olympics because
What?
there's a massive YWAM
Praise
outreach going
God.
on there. So, like,
That's
God
cool.
is good. God is
God is
good.
so
And
good.
when we're obedient, he'll he'll fulfill more than your heart's desires. Because he knows I love to travel. And like it's just a love language, like that the
It
Lord loves
is.
to share with.
So that's how you got involved with YWAM, which is still an ongoing part of your life. I just wanted
Yes.
you to tell the story about how you found out about the CEDM community and what you're doing now within the CEDM community.
When I first got saved, I was like, okay, I gotta like change everything. I gotta completely switch this thing up and start focusing on something new. And that's when I first found Planet Boom and the Planet Shake,
Yeah.
which their tunes were like off the
Did you
chain.
see
And I was
Claude
like,
with
this
the
is
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. I
yeah?
was like, this is dope. I was like, they're making straight up bass music for the Lord. I was like, I'm moving to Australia, right? I'm like, this is a thing. Like, I now know that I'm not the only person in the world that loves Jesus and loves EDM. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So there's like, I don't know what the hope in the future is, but there's a hope in the future, in this. So I like really am only jamming them, like not really digging too deep, not like going out of my way. I like sold my DJ gear and sold all my stuff because I was like, okay, I gotta like take some seasons off and just all I wanted to do was read the Bible. Like that's it. Like I just wanted to read the Bible, read the Bible, read the Bible, like and listen to Planet Boom and like that's it. I wasn't even like feeling actual worship music yet. Like I would in church the music, like heard Waymaker and I was like, oh yeah, like that's the song
Amazing.
because that was like the first song I heard when I got saved. And I was like, that's the song, you know? So, but I wasn't really, I would listen to Kalo, but I was like, this is cool, you know? But it touched my heart because it was talking about Jesus.
Aspen is like
Yeah.
that too. He doesn't really worship with like the stereotypical worship music at church because EDM is his style. And there's a lot of people like
Mm.
that who are like, I don't really like this style of music. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like anyone who's struggling with that, there's nothing wrong with preferring a style of music.
Now, you know, my musical palette is more has more adjusted, and I love worship music. I love CCM. I love spontaneous. I love it all. You know, I will like listen to pretty much anything, and especially worship music. I jam it all the time. I'm good with that now. But at this point in time in my walk, I was like, I was like, cool, but like, there's this Jesus music that's like EDM. I'm like, I'm listening to this. So so I'm doing that, and I take off the YWAM. Oh no, no, no! Wait a second. Wait. Right before I left for YWAM. So back to when I first got saved. The next week, when I had like met that girl, was at church with my mom. They sang Waymaker. I was like, "This is my song. Waymaker's the song." Like I like this touches my heart. Like I experienced the Lord in some crazy way. I'm singing it all day in my head, and that goes on for about 6 months till I'm getting ready to leave for YWAM. And so one night, as I'm getting ready to leave for YWAM, I go to a young adult service. And after the service, I get in my car. And when I get in my car, somehow, without prompted, without me searching, without me looking, or without me knowing that it existed, God's Nation, one of the God's Nation tunes pops up. And I'm like, I was
Hey,
like, does that say God's Nation? I
nephew.
was like Trap Nation? I'm like,
Mhm.
what? And it says Waymaker. And I'm like, Waymaker? I was like, on God. I was like, what is this? So I click it and I listen to it. And it was the Waymaker Trap Heroes remix. And I began to weep. I couldn't even pull out of the church parking lot. I'm in my car crying because right then the Lord spoke to me and was like, now you're getting it. You're like your whole life has built up for this. There is something that's about to happen for the kingdom that is unlike anything that's ever happened before. Like I just feel the Lord pouring into me. Like there's going to be a movement. I'm seeing like hundreds of millions of people saved and like all this through this music, like through a combination of like worship unto the Lord built into EDM music. And I'm like, it's like like shaping and like just pulling my heart, the strings of my heart, and playing it like a harp. And I'm in my car sobbing with joy. Like I'm talking bawling my eyes out because it's like now it all makes sense. My whole life makes sense. Everything that built up to this makes sense. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, okay. So like I don't know what to do next. I don't know like how to go about it, but that's when I started listening to God's Nation. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to YWAM, I'm going to go to YWAM. So I go to YWAM and I'm there, and I'm just like pressing in on the Lord. And one day, a video pops up. And the video pops up for a good buddy of mine who I actually got to see last year. The song was Holy Spirit, and it was by Bryson Price. And
Bryson.
yes, so Bryson is literally on the song beforehand, talking, evangelizing about Jesus. And he's like, Jesus loves you so much. And like, I just want to let you know that. Like this song, like I made it about God. It's like for the Holy Spirit. And it's like dubstep. So like, check it out. And I'm like, dude, what, bro? And it was the first time I heard somebody like make like Planet Boom is dope, and they make some dubstep-ish tracks, but like this was dubstep. I was like, what, dude? This is crazy. Like this is not real life right now. So immediately I'm like, I had to call this. I hit him up. I'm like, dude, we like get on a phone call. Like, I don't even know what's happening. So I get on a phone call with him, and he's like, yeah. He's like, there's like more of us. That's like more of you. What do you mean there's more of you? So that's when he plugged me into the network, and he was like, yeah, you should like get involved. So I get involved with Apostle a little bit and start talking to them. And I come out and I'm talking to Trey. I'm on all the meetings for like one of the first CEDM shows we all did together, which was at Aspen's Church in San Diego. and I fly out to San Diego and we do the party, and it's Jewel, Aspen, Trey, myself, Bryson Price. Who else was there? Uh,
Mike Shift was
Mike
there.
Shift, Mike
Tyler.
Shift, and
This
Tyler.
guy
And
over
Tyler,
here.
yeah. I said Aspen, right? I think
I
so.
don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
He's just telling me the name.
Okay.
That was
Oh,
whenever I
okay,
was just
okay.
entering the scene.
Just so everyone knows, Turtle's
Well,
here.
we were both just entering. My dude, I love him so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, that
So
was whenever I first got in the scene. That was my first interaction. So it's kind of crazy how that was yours as well. Like
Hmm.
you entered the scene at the same time I did as well, basically.
I feel like that was the beginning of there was a
The
scene, but
scene.
like
Yeah, like
this
that was really
that
the
was the
kickstart.
scene.
Hmm.
We were the
Yeah.
scene. Like everybody that was there was the scene.
Yeah,
So,
and everybody there is still kind of like running the scene. I mean, Bryson Price kind of retired, and a few other people are kind of doing their own
mhm,
thing now. But overall, we're all still around and stronger now than we were back
mhm.
then.
Yeah, for sure.
Amen.
I think all of us kind of had a calling around the same time
Mhm.
because when you had your realization when Aspen and Eric got together and started Extel Records, who's now part of the video now,
Not intentional.
around that same time.
Let's not pass over the fact that
Hey,
before Exto Records was Exto, it was Turtle Records.
Holy Turtle
Am I
Records.
Holy
right?
Yeah.
Turtle
Holy
Records,
That
right?
wasn't it.
Holy
That
Turtle
wasn't it.
Records.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trust
when
me,
all
I
this
know these
happened,
things.
like when I started the
Because it
True,
wasn't supposed to be a record.
it wasn't like when I was in True EDM
I
wasn't supposed to be like a ministry or a promotion company. It was just a playlist. That's just what it started out as,
mhm.
and it's all happened at the same time. So God has
Yeah.
very
Videos for
intentional.
another time.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the timeline in another video.
Okay.
We'll hint on it just to get everyone curious. But this has been so amazing, and now you're doing so much. So now you're joining us for Living Water. You're holding your own raves with Upside Down Raves. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yes.
what are you doing now in the CDM community? Because you kind of told us about how you got into it. So
Mhm.
now what are you kind of doing?
So now, in live time, there's two facets that I have to it. So there's there's the promotion and then there's the music. Really, I've been doubling down and from a word from the Lord that I got just to like focus on music, on sharpening my skills as a DJ, because I can do it well and I want to do it even better. And learning music production. So I've spent like I finally about 6 months ago got all of the right gear to begin producing music. And for the past 6 months, I've just been like studying nonstop on learning Ableton and learning how to actually write anthem style tunes. So that's like a big part of what my focus is. But also at the same time, I, got what's going on with Upside Down Raves. Back we did the rave in Philadelphia a couple months ago. We got the rave coming up that's going to be in Atlanta. That's the partnership of us all. And I've been
Nice.
grateful to get to DJ on all of these parties that were thrown together,
Mhm.
everything from back in Rhode Island to here in Philly to Wilderness happening out in Denver to Living Water happening to going from there and NYC happening this October and at Amplify and then doing Unite in November. And then also like on the flip side of that, I've been DJing Christian EDM for a lot of the YWAM and the Send events. So like with that, they've been letting me incorporate it into missions. I'm kind of like the outreach missions DJ, the go-to guy. Like they hit me up to come to Bonnaroo. So now I have, myself along with some of the homies going to Bonnaroo next weekend so that we can all DJ at Bonnaroo on a super dope stage. It'll be Dawn Patrol. It'll be ASAP. It'll be myself. It's going to be sick, And what I really feel called to in this season, more so than and I do love throwing raves. Like it being a promoter is a huge thing that like has really guided a lot of my life. But the two main things I want to focus on is A, supporting the movements that God is stirring up in other people. since I'm a little bit older than a lot of my friends, not all my friends, but than a lot, I want to be able to use the failures that I've experienced in life to help kind of shape, what is going to happen professionally going into these upcoming seasons. And I want to be able to be a support system to different organizations, different promoters, and different organizers like yourselves that are willing to just like go for it, like willing to just press in and say, this is a crazy call from the Lord, but we're going to do this.
We're gonna do
We
it.
might
Yeah.
not know every single thing to do. We might not know every single method, but like we're just going to be obedient and do this. And in the midst of that, I want to be able to be someone that like helps elevate that helps support that. And because of that, like, of course, I love DJing on the stage. I love like, talking to people and out evangelizing, but I want to be able to just say like, hey, I got your back. Like, I got your back in doing this. Whatever it takes, I'm here to serve y'all. I'm here to serve other people that are willing to just do this for the Lord. And that's what I feel most called to in this season is just like that servant heart of being able to be a support system and help us all come together and unite together, no pun intended, to really just help continue to build the character of this scene, yeah, and also use this as a way to go into culture, just like how Daniel, Ananias, Azariah, Mishael, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego went into the
Oh, in
Babylonian
the
culture,
fire.
and they stood strong. They stood strong to their belief in God, and that impacted the rest of the culture because of what they seen them do. And I believe that's what we're doing at such a time as this. So I really want to be here for that. So I really just want to keep honing in on sharpening my production skills, keep,
Aw.
just doing the thing I love to do most, which is DJ, and be here for my friends, most important.
Well, we're grateful that you do it. And even though you offer us so much support, how can the listeners support you?
Wow, the listeners, support me by really just engaging with the content online. Everything that I put online on my Instagram,
Yes.
especially, is it's to help perpetuate forward the CEDM culture, to continue to get Jesus in the ears of people that normally aren't going to listen to a worship tune or aren't going to walk into a church. And I want to see that go, digitally out because us as digital creatives, we have an opportunity now to share Jesus with such a large worldwide audience. And I truly believe through dance music that we can do that unlike ever before. So if you want to support me, just go to my page, engage with my content, show me some love, shoot me a message, I'll answer you, leave some comments and let's chat.
I do have a question for you. So you're doing a little like daily thing on Instagram, correct?
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're doing like a challenge, like a DJ challenge.
So yeah, honestly, I just set out with this idea to post 100 videos of me remixing different worship tunes into bass music, into dubstep, into drum and bass, into house music, and mixing it up and throwing it out online to see the response that it would get. And up
How
until
many
this
days have
point,
you
it's
done so
got
far?
right now, I am going on day 29. I'll hit day 30 this week. So I usually
Okay.
post every other day. And that way, so it gives enough time for the video to circulate and it doesn't
Yeah.
just like get pushed out by the last one.
Right.
And because of that, I've gotten a lot of different new engagement. Yeah, Instagram, their new algorithm pushes the music out to people that it's different than just your followers. It pushes it out to people that normally may not be following you. And I've been getting hit up and contacted by people that are just touched by it, that
That's
enjoy it, and they're
awesome.
like, "What? Like, don't even know that this is a thing." There's still people out there that don't know this is a thing, and well, like just like
Yeah,
we may have
that's
not
so
known
true.
this is a thing at a certain point in time, we got to get out there and let them know. And well,
That's the
the internet
thing.
helps out.
Not just the Christians, but also the ravers, because I've talked to ravers about Christianity and they're always like, what? They're always
don't know.
so shocked. They're because
They're like,
some of them come from
you're a
Christian
joke.
households and they're like, man, if I was a Christian, I would have listened to all this time. I'm like, same, I would have too.
I wouldn't be
Right?
where I'm at if there was.
I know, same. We probably wouldn't have
Amen.
had our history if there was Christian EDM. All right, well, Sammy, this has been amazing. All the information that we've talked about as far as Living Water and his social media and everything is included in the description. So make sure to click on those links, follow, like, comment, do all the things, keep up on our shows and Upside Down Rave shows, and make sure to take advantage of that competition, guys. You got to take advantage
Get that
of it.
competition.
You
Y'all gotta
got
get
to.
that competition. What are you doing? That's a
Absolutely.
free flight and a free stay in Denver for a music
Technically,
festival
$15,
that has super
It's
dope
free.
tunes.
Donation
Glorifying the Lord.
competition.
$15? Bro, that's not
nothing.
even 2 cups from
That's
Starbucks.
a meal.
Like,
That's a meal.
you better skip Starbucks in the morning, you know what I mean?
Right?
And
Right. Exactly.
get that ticket.
Well, this has been
Yes.
amazing. Thanks for joining Last Minute Aspen Fauché, otherwise known as Turtle.
Yes.
And thank you everyone for watching. I hope you have a great day and shalom. Bye.
Peace.